Today, I'm going to talk about the dating site Narcissist. Hi, I'm Nanette. Welcome back to Narcissism Exposed. So how many of you are currently on a dating site, or maybe you were on a dating site not too long ago? Well, did you know that those are prime places where narcissists love to hang out? And let's face it, there are many types of predators on these dating sites. Today, we're going to address the narcissist. You know, we hear all these success stories, how people found romance on the dating site, or romance that led to marriage, and 60% of marriages are from dating sites. But how many of the horror stories have we actually heard from these dating sites where people, men and women, are abused and attacked by predators? And the Bible calls these people wolves in sheep's clothes. They appear so perfect and wonderful that you think, wow, I found my soulmate. But behind that facade, and we all know about the facade, the persona of the narcissist, lies diabolical tactics, traits, and agenda. There's a TV channel called Studio 10 in Sydney, Australia, and they had a documentation of this woman who was on a dating site, and she fell into the hands of a predator, a narcissist who set out to kill her. And I'm going to show you that clip, and I want you to make mental check notes of everything that you're observing and everything that you're learning just by hearing her story, and jot it down below. So here it goes.
This was 4 years ago. How are you doing these days? You've still got the scars we can see.
Yeah. You know, the healing process is ongoing for anyone who's been through any sort of trauma like I have. I'm doing really well. I have thrown myself into my work. I work as a doctor in women's health, so I have the privilege of helping mothers and families through the birth of a child, as well as looking after women in their most vulnerable times in healthcare. So that's really driven me on and given me strength throughout the years. Obviously, getting through anything like this requires a team of support, and that's involved professional kind of therapists, as well as just a really good support network of friends and family.
Take us back to how you met Paul. You met him on Tinder. We've just seen some photos of him. He looks lovely, quite handsome. Doesn't look like the monster that he ended up becoming. What was your first kind of initial feeling towards him?
Yeah, so I was initially very attracted to Paul. He was very mature, had a great sense of humour, made me laugh, and we actually had a spark straight away and connected. And one of the things that really made me attracted to him was he was very romantic, would send me flowers to my workplace, take me on nice dinners, said he, you know, recognized how hard I worked and that I cared for others, and he wanted to be there and care for me. And I never thought anything of it. If anything, I thought I had found a real catch and had found a man that was looking for the same thing I was, which was settling down and having a serious relationship and someone that could truly care for me.
Yeah. Were there any red flags?
I guess everything's easier in retrospect. For me, probably the biggest red flag was that the romantic gestures were very intense. And I think there is a fine line between romance and being controlling. He was very jealous, particularly of other men in my life or male colleagues, and started to dictate who I could and who I could speak to and when. And when I tried to end things the first time, he started threatening to commit suicide.
Wow.
Which I now know that is a form of control.
Of course. Didn't he work out? Didn't he work out your phone password as well?
Yeah. So it was towards the end. I kind of didn't think that much of it, but he had kind of figured out what my password was to unlock my phone, and kind of learnt a lot of little details about me, which at the time I thought he was just being caring and just really actually listened to me and took notice.
Yeah.
But then it became a bit more frightening. And certainly when things turned sour, it frightened me by how much he did know about me in such a short time.
Yeah, and imagine, sorry, we appreciate how difficult it must be to talk about it as well, but was there one moment where we said, this is it has to end? And did you find like you had the help, or did you need help from someone to do that?
Yeah, so towards the end, I thought I was going crazy. I had tried to end things several times, and because he was very upset, it kind of played on my emotion and initially, and then it turned to threats of suicide, in which again, I felt guilty and obviously didn't want him to harm himself. And then it came to a point that I was just losing sleep. I felt like I was going crazy, and I just really wanted to get away from him and didn't know how. So I did actually open up to my sister and a few friends who helped me get away from him physically at that time, as well as when I opened up a bit more to my sister, she encouraged me to seek the help of police. And that's when I got kind of initial advice. And from there, then his behaviour did escalate, and police became even more involved from that point.
So how often were you talking, when you made the initial contact with the police? I mean, I'd imagine they might have just went, oh, well, this is just someone who's not happy in a relationship, they want to break up. Did it get more intense in terms of when Paul got more intense, that you found you were onto the police a lot more, that they take it more serious?
Yeah, so initially I wasn't really able to verbalize what I was worried about. I was more, I guess, concerned that he was threatening to harm himself, and I kind of wanted their advice as to, look, I need to take a step back. Is there anything I should do, or should I be worried about? I'm kind of nervous because he's acting intense, and I'm about to head home to Port Macquarie, where I live on my own, and he knows where I live. Yeah. So I felt a bit uneasy, but at that point he hadn't threatened me per se. And they kind of looked into things, took a statement and said, you know, look, it looks like he's probably more danger to himself than anything else. But
yeah, this is the thing that blows my mind, because there's obviously, he has been in trouble for stuff like this before. So when you reported this to the police and obviously gave his name, how was that not flagged, considering what he'd done previously to when he met?
Yeah, good question. That's something I was confused about initially when I did start learning more about his past. But I guess a good thing is that since then, because this was 4 years ago, I think I believe there's a lot more sharing of information between state governments. And I think one of the problems is a lot of his previous offences were both overseas and interstate. And unfortunately, with, you know, confidentiality and privacy, we don't unfortunately have a perfect system of communication state to state.
We know it is the most dangerous time for women when they're actually leaving a violent or an abusive or controlling relationship. Sure. That is the danger time. You were so frightened that you actually stayed with friends. You were too scared to live at home because he had threatened you and said, I have a key. You decided to head home one day and grab some fresh clothes. Take us back to that day and the moment of the attack. You thought it would be okay, it was broad daylight. What happened?
Yeah, so I had actually been on call for the hospital the night before and had been in work assessing patients. And I can't remember now, but I think I had a delivery that night, so I hadn't had very much sleep from work-wise, and I was also finding it really difficult to sleep that week. So I was kind of, you know, sleep deprived, and I think everyone knows when you're jet lagged that when you're overly tired, you do just feel a bit dazed. I had then been at work, seen some patients in a clinic, and was coming home from work, and I think because I was tired, and also a few days had passed, and I had filed for an AVO, and I had blocked him from social media on my phone, so I hadn't actually heard from him. I started thinking, like, look, I think you're being a bit crazy. He's not going to do anything. Like, it's broad daylight. It's perfectly safe. Like, let's be honest, like, you need to get some things from home and feed the cat. So I went home initially thinking, like, I'll just literally duck in, duck out. But once I was home, it's my home. So, you know, I was tired, so I was like, watch a bit of telly. Was actually watching The Project and had some dinner. And then I thought I should probably actually grab some things, which I came for. And then I walked down into my bedroom, and that's when I found out he had been hiding in one of my closets and jumped out and restrained me. And it feels weird thinking about it now that I was kind of just going about my after-work routine and he was there the whole time.
Do you remember much of the attack, or have you blocked it out?
No, I remember it. Obviously don't like to think about it too much or talk about it in depth, but certainly I think in those moments your flight or fight response does really kick in, and I'm glad that I obviously have some good instincts, and I think I was just very lucky. You know, I know very easily that a death and that I was supposed to die that day and that I'm now living on borrowed time, and that's something that I continue to kind of work through.
Oh, you can't
No,
feel
it's
that way.
devastating, yeah, of course not.
It's such a gift in a way that you are sharing your story. So it doesn't happen to other women. And I think a lot of the time women do ignore their intuition. They think, no, I'm being crazy, I'm being nutty here, I'm imagining things. And if we just listen to that little voice a little bit more inside, perhaps we would sort of back ourselves to leave sooner. So you were stabbed multiple times. You were doused in petrol. How did you get away?
I think there was just such a strong will in me that I just wanted to get away. I, at that kind of basically had accepted that I was going to die during the attack, but somehow just didn't give up. And I think particularly the petrol is what really gave me the drive to run. You know, just the thought of being lit on fire, obviously everyone sees that as probably one of the most horrific ways to die. And the petrol actually made me a bit slippery as well. So I think that was really a blessing as well, because I managed to slip out of his grip and run. And thankfully he didn't catch up to me before I got out of my house.
It's an absolute animal. I mean, I can only, geez, I'm so sorry that you had to go through it. Was there any, obviously he's very intense, he was all over everything. Did you have any sort of, from when you got away, any kind of contact or fear after that he might come after you, or any sort of contact, I guess?
Yeah, no, at that point for me, luckily my neighbours had heard me screaming and were waiting outside, so were able to help me.
Yeah.
At that point, I was just so relieved that I got away at all. And I was still terrified that I basically was still convinced that I was going to bleed to death. Yeah. And that despite getting away, that I was still going to die.
Well, you are a survivor. Paul, after that attack, was shot dead by police. You went on to rebuild your life.
Okay, so you've heard her horrific story about what happened to her, and by the grace of God, she survived and she learned her lesson. Now, I'm going to go over some things that I jotted down while watching this. So, this narcissist, this abuser, some of the things that she noted, this woman, her name is Angela, the victim. He was very charming. And, you know, it could be a male or a female. We're talking, these narcissists, they're not gender specific. It's either or. And they appear very charming, very together, very polished in how they look. And the next thing she says, he was very sensitive and compassionate. Now, we know that the narcissist has no compassion, has no empathy. All they do is mimic that. They mimic you, they mirror you. So it looks like compassion because they're following a dialogue, a narrative. And the next thing, she said that he showed appreciation. So he said he noticed how hard she worked and where she worked, she's a doctor, and that he said that, you know, I just want to take great care of you. And the fourth thing she said is that he was so romantic. He brought flowers to where she worked and brought her to romantic dinners. And the fifth thing Angela said is that she thought she had found a great catch. Now, how many of us have thought that too when we met somebody who seemed really perfect for us on the dating site and we thought, wow, we really caught a great catch? Now, she also, number 6, said that, you know, she thought that they had similar goals, that they both wanted to settle down and have a serious relationship. And I'm guessing that he first found that out about her and then mirrored her. And that's what these narcissists do. They will mirror what you say, what your desires are. And that's why it's best when going on these dating sites to keep your interests, your goals to a minimum. turn the tables around and you find out what he or she is looking for in a relationship. And the seventh thing Angela said is that she wanted to find somebody who really cared for her, who would really care for her and about her. And isn't that what everybody wants? We're all looking for that. But sometimes we let down our guard because we want that so badly that we ignore the red flags. And speaking of red flags, that's exactly what Angela said. She said that in retrospect, she did see those red flags. And she said the number one red flag was that in the romance was just too intense. It was too fast, too intense, and it swept her off her feet. And instead of looking at it like, wow, this is too much, too fast, aka it was the love bombing, that you take a step back and you say, you know what? This is controlling. This doesn't seem right. This is awkward. And that's exactly what this love bombing is the narcissist's attempt to grab hold of your emotions and start controlling them. And the second red flag that Angela noticed was that he became very jealous over the other men in her life, like especially the colleagues where she worked. And he started to dictate to her who she could talk to and when. And the third red flag was that the first time she tried to leave the relationship and end it, he threatened that he would commit suicide. And that is also a form of control. Anytime a narcissist starts to threaten that they're going to kill themselves, it is another form of controlling your emotions and manipulating your emotions to stay with him or her. The fourth red flag, that at the time she didn't think anything of it, but he guessed her password to her phone. Now, I don't know how that happened, if she somehow inadvertently said something that gave him a clue. But these narcissists are always plugging you with questions to try to get what they're looking for, which is many times your secrets, your privacy, your passwords. And at the time, she didn't really think anything of it. But in retrospect, she thought, wow, that was a red flag she should not have ignored. And neither should we. And then she went on to say that he had learned so much about her and expressed all these things that he learned about her, which at the time she thought, wow, he's really listening to me and he really cares for me. But looking back, she realized he should not have been knowing that much that soon about her. And the sixth thing that she mentioned is that based on knowing how much he knew of her, she began to feel frightened. And that right there is a red flag. Anyone who makes you feel frightened, that's a dead giveaway to detach and get away from that relationship or situationship, as I like to call it. And the seventh thing that I jotted down from that video is that she said towards the end, she started to feel crazy. And isn't that what the narcissist tries to do? With their threatening suicide, their mind control, emotion control, where they gaslight you, ghost you, threaten suicide, threaten to hurt themselves, threaten to hurt you. Yeah, she started to feel crazy and confused. And the eighth thing that Angela said is that she stayed, even though she tried to end the relationship a number of times, she ended up staying because he really played on her emotions, and with the threats of hurting himself, of killing himself, she started feeling guilty. She was losing sleep. She was feeling like an emotional yo-yo, I call it, because he was doing exactly that, playing with her emotions to produce a certain outcome that would line up with his narrative. The ninth thing that she did, and this was a very smart thing, is that she opened up to her sister and her friends, some of her close friends, about what was going on. And they encouraged her and helped her to get away from him physically. And you see, that's a very key thing here, because most times, most victims feel really scared to try to reach out to someone for fear of what the narcissist, him or her, will do to them. And so they stay quiet and they walk on eggshells, or they wait till the storm blows over instead of exposing them and finding some type of resource to get help. And then from there, Angela's sister encouraged her to go to the police, and she did. And they also gave her a place to stay, so she didn't have to go living in fear of her own place, because he knew where she lived. And all of this started to escalate that narcissist's bad behavior. It rollerballed it. Why? Because anytime they feel like they're losing control over their victim, they're filled with rage and revenge. And then you heard from Angela how she wanted to go back to her place to get some fresh clothes and pick up some things and freshen up, unknowing that that narcissist was waiting for her in one of her closets to attack her. And that narcissist brought weapons with him. He brought a knife that he stabbed her with and gasoline to throw on top of her. All of this premeditated hate and viciousness. You have to understand that these narcissists, they're listening to demonic voices in their ear, and there's no stopping them. There comes a point where that narcissist has no more boundaries whatsoever. They'll do whatever it takes to end their sick game with you by killing you, hurting you, taking from you. And that's what happened in this situation. He went at her with the intention to kill her, but by the grace of God, she escaped. You know, we have to understand that the most dangerous time when you're dealing with a narcissist is the moment you decide you've had enough. You have your awakening, then you have your enlightenment from God's word, and you decide you're out of there and you want to detach and escape. You must do it wisely and safely, because once the narcissist knows that you are going to leave him or her, that's when all hell is let loose. So here's my advice to anyone who's on a dating site currently. The first thing is have boundaries. Know what they are and have them in place. The second thing is move slowly. Take your time and keep what's personal to you, to yourself. It doesn't matter what the he or she is asking you. You're not obligated to answer anyone's question, and you can tell them, well, that's personal. That's private. And the third thing is that, look, if it seems too good to be true, most likely it is, because healthy relationships are built over time. Mutual respect, interest. When you notice that there's this crazy whirlwind love bombing, that's your clue and cue to say, another red flag. And you control the pace. Not the narcissist with all that crazy whirlwind love bombing. You go, whoa. Take it easy, Bronco. Yeah, you determine the pace. And if he or she doesn't like it, oh well. And the fourth piece of advice I would give you is keep all of your passwords to your phone, your laptop, anything and anywhere. Keep them secure and don't make them easy to guess. Make them around 13 characters where it's a combination of capital letters, small letters, numbers, and other symbols, if those are allowed within your password. Make them complicated so somebody can't guess them. And if they do guess it, you know what? make yourself a new password and make it 10 times harder. And my fifth piece of advice is with the hindsight. So many times there's a little bit of a negative connotation with that, like, wow, I wish I knew that then. I wish I knew all that information then. But praise God, now. And now you can move forward currently and in the future, having an understanding of what you should require in a relationship and require of yourself. That you must have boundaries and use those protocols to your advantage moving forward. And number 6, never hesitate to let your people, your family or friends, whoever's your trusted person or people, share things with them. Never be afraid to expose and reveal, because it's in talking to others that are close to you, that know you really well and love you unequivocally, that you get to see the bigger picture. Because sometimes when we're right there in the midst of things, we have tunnel vision. We only see through the pink lenses, as they say. But when we share it with a close friend, a close family member, then we can get more of a bigger picture, more of an objective viewpoint. Look, it's not your job to fix anyone. It's not your job to rebuild someone, to rehabilitate somebody. You can't make somebody into the perfect person that you're looking for. And with narcissists, they may seem perfect, like your soulmate kind of thing, at first, because what they're doing is love bombing you and mirroring you. So we can't go by that. We have to set those parameters and those boundaries. And remember that everybody makes choices. If they want to follow evil, that's their choice. You can't change someone's mind, because look, God gave each one of us freedom of will. That's right. And even though we may want the best for somebody, they have to make that choice themselves. There's a fantastic verse in God's word regarding these predators on these dating sites. And it's, again, not limited to dating sites, believe me, and as you all well know. So in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, it says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." I think for a lot of believers, a lot of Christians, it's ingrained in our brain, we have to be harmless as a dove, harmless as a dove. But how many times do we forget to be wise as a serpent? That's God telling us to be wise as serpents. So when we are going on a dating site or into any situation, relationship, God wants you to go with your eyes wide open, and He wants you safe. He wants you protected. So if you found this helpful, do hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, do hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I put out a video. And until next time, walk in peace and be blessed in your hearts.